afternoon. This is Jeff Sentell with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It's another one of our habitual jolts of UGA Football Recruiting. I cover college football recruiting and UGA Football Recruiting for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Monday morning, Monday afternoon exactly. We're actually on commit watch right now as Davion Curtis, a talented three-star wide receiver, out of Texas. He's a three-star, is on commitment watch. He will likely announce his decision sometime in the next 17 minutes or so. He's going live with a local ESPN affiliate right there to announce his decision. Once again, I'm Jeff, cover UGA football recruiting for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. So glad you guys could make some time for us to hang out and stop by. One thing that we'll jump in today, if you saw the morning links this morning on AJC.com, was we talked about potentially what a Curtis commitment might mean. And it could get a little dicey, because what we're looking at here is we're looking at another receiver. Georgia already has Darian Anderson, Houston County. He was the first committed receiver. And then over the last 2 weeks now, last week we saw Randricus Davis. That's a young man with the huge Georgia G on his bicep tattoo. And then we also saw Charlie Warner, who I guess we could kind of call a tight end. He also committed to the G last week. So that's three receivers. With Davion Curtis, what he make for? Really speedy guy. Apparently that's what Ryan McClendon wants to see out of his receivers room now. Lots of guys that can put their foot on the ground and go. He is a 2016 recruit, CP Tweets. Thank you for asking that. Carter Justice says he could fill spots that we don't want to fill because we were saving them for Robertson and Davis. See, that's the crux of the debate here for me. You know, every school is going to offer 10, 12 guys, and a lot of those guys are going to be takes, and they hope they get the first 5 out of those that they really like. The thing that I think is interesting here with Georgia is what happens if Curtis commits to Georgia today. That would mean 4. If you want to call Warner a tight end, well, then that's fine. He's a tight end. But then you would have, what happens if Benjamin Victor? What happens if Trey Simmons? What happens if Kyle Davis, probably the biggest fish out there in the pond? What happens if Brian Edwards, South Carolina, commit? What happens if all those guys, Trey Nixon out of Florida, out of Vieira, what happens if all those guys want to commit? What does Georgia do then? And you're also got to think, okay, Demetrius Robinson, the talented guy, out of Savannah Christian. Well, he's an athlete. Yeah, he can play some DB. Same thing with McCole Hardman. He can play some DB. What you're looking there, I guess it's an interesting scenario. It's not what I would call a hypothetical, but it's what would happen if Georgia looks around the country, looks around their big board for 2016 and says, oh my, we've got 5, 6, 7 receivers who want to join the program. And nobody, as I pointed out in our morning links column, not Gene Jones, not Hal Mummy, nobody is going to sign, not Mouse Davis, nobody is going to sign that many receivers in a class. 6 or 7 would be stretching it. Even if you want to do that athlete thing, and okay, let's say you make Charlie Warner one of the tight ends in this class. And really all it is guys that could get on the field. But then if you call Charlie Warner a tight end, what happens if Jacob Mathis, the talented tight end out of Tampa, wants to join? Isaac Nada, who wants to join? Garrett Walston is already committed at tight end. So is Georgia looking at 3, maybe 4 tight ends as well, depending on where you want to count Warner? I think that's just a very interesting way to look at prematurely. D. Norman 07, good question. Our max signing number for this year. The number is kind of going to be somewhere around 25 to 29. It depends on a few factors. Guys may graduate. Guys may turn pro. Guys may have a season-ending injury. Hate to say that, sometime early in the season where they take a red shirt. And then the scholarship number is not what you expect it to be within the NCAA requirement. The AJC learned earlier this summer that Georgia was right at its limit heading into the fall campaign. So, yeah, the game 7-1-6-8-4, that's what you like to start thinking. Georgia has not been the school that has been the gray shirt or the slow play to get a committed receiver to leave the program when better fish come into the boat. That's what everybody else in the SEC is supposed to do, right? But that's going to get very interesting if everybody wants to play with Eason. And, I mean, first of all, it's a great problem to have because all these guys, if they all want to go to Georgia, Georgia would find a way to make it work. Maybe they don't take a punter. Maybe they don't take a kicker. Maybe they deal with some walk-ons in that avenue. It's going to be very hard to say no to a Demetrius Robinson. I think Georgia's his number 3. Also, what's going to happen is it's going to be very hard for Georgia to say no to Kyle Davis. So what happens then if Kyle Davis comes on board, and then even lots of other players come on board with the opportunity to play receiver at Georgia. Like I rolled through them: Trey Simmons, Benjamin Victor, probably not going to get him. Trey Nixon. It's between Georgia and Penn State for that guy. What happens if all those guys want to play receiver at Georgia and the number starts looking like 4, 5, 6, or 7? That's going to be very interesting, and that's why I thought was one of the most important news elements of the day when that story came out. Good question a second ago about Holyfield. Well, we could not take an RB. We don't need one in this class. I'll be very worried about that because I think Georgia, if you look back at last year's signing class, there's just one guy who committed that was a true running back last year in that class. And you're telling me Georgia's going to go 2 years, 2 recruiting cycles without taking more than one running back? That would be really hard. Who would I rather have, Devois Whaley or Holyfield? Tough question there. I think Devois Whaley is rated really high on a lot of national boards. He seems to really like Georgia a lot. I would probably take Holyfield just for the fact that he is in tight with so many other Georgia boys in this class, and that would add momentum to the class. Guys would see him joining in, want to be a part of it. It's a big name, the real deal. Holyfield's son wanted to be a part of the program. That would be a huge pull. It would grab some headlines, and he's obviously a very quality back. I think Georgia would probably be satisfied with either one of those guys, Holyfield or Whaley. Ready0422 makes a point that DR and KD are takes regardless of who is on the board. Yeah, I think they are, but what does that mean then? What if you've got 5 committed receivers then? You're going to have to get really interesting with the class because as of right now, Georgia has 3 committed offensive linemen. Georgia has 0 committed linebackers. Georgia has 3 committed defensive backs. Hardman's still out there. Those are a lot of guys that are out there. Really, really good players. E.J. Price. What about Landon Dickerson on the offensive line? What about Willie Allen on the offensive line? What about a guy like Marlon Davidson, a defensive end, or Brian Burns out of American Heritage? Those are a lot of guys that are wanting to come be a part of that. And then the numbers are starting to get stretched. Would Davidson or Anderson accept a gray shirt or decommit? I would think that they would have other opportunities elsewhere, but if they really wanted to play at Georgia, they would have to consider that. Price, E.J. Price, I want to answer this question about E.J. Price in Georgia. E.J. Price quickly committed to Georgia a while back. He really liked what Rob Sale had to offer, and Georgia went out of anywhere, went out of basically nowhere outside of his top 10 and jumped into his top group, earned his commitment. And then the young man went a step back in late June. He said, I want to really figure out what my recruiting is all about. I want to see what exactly is out there. And what happened then is Georgia, he decommitted from Georgia, and then he's found himself opening up his commitment. Georgia's still right there among his top schools. Georgia will likely get a visit. I think Landon Dickerson is a name to think about because he's taken a long look at Georgia. He's came back twice, and I think Georgia might get him. He might be as likely a pull as E.J. Price. Open tryouts, Winky Face HD. You keep asking that question, and we are here to serve the viewers here at Periscope. There's probably no such thing as an open tryout. You go to camps. You basically show up with great film that you're invited for premium days, and you get recommended. You see game film, and those are the guys you consider. Would I rather have Dickerson or Price? Carter, that's a really good question. I would like a guy that wants to be at Georgia. And remember, Georgia comes into Landon Dickerson really late. He's actually very young for his age, and he could play guard or tackle without a whole lot of flexibility or adaptability. And he could really, I think Landon Dickerson, anybody that's motivated to be at Georgia and wants to be at Georgia and is excited about being at Georgia, I think that's a player I'd rather have instead of having to just keep convincing somebody to come back to the fold. GDog724, what chance do you give us for Trevor Lawrence? Good question. The number 1 prospect out of all of 2018 out of Cartersville. Family grew up Tennessee fans. He grew up a Tennessee fan. Georgia is his clear number 2 right now. And what I would say there with Trevor is they would really need Jacob Eason to play 3 great years at Georgia and be done. And that would make Trevor Lawrence's chances of coming to UGA and playing in Athens a lot greater. Everybody wonders about Georgia's stacked recruiting haul at quarterback. We don't even know where Tennessee is going to be. We don't even know where Tennessee is going to be 3 years from now. Famous Amos 89, do you think UGA will end up getting Isaac Naughton committed by signing day? Yes, I do. I would think that's the way things are trending. If you read the tea leaves and you see where Georgia has always been his number 2, he expresses the fact that he would like to play in front of family and friends that he grew up around in the Beaufort area. I would think that guy is trending towards Georgia, and to me now, I would think the odds of him going to Georgia are higher than any other school. Holyfield, I would say the chances of him signing with Georgia would be as well as any other school. If UGA were to land Derek Brown, how would they line him, Thompson, and Rochester up? Good question. Really good question. That's a scheme question. I would think that Derek Brown would be an end guy, perhaps a 7 technique. He would play on the exterior of the line, more closer to the edge. And I think Rochester would definitely be in the middle. Rashawn Gary, lots of people are asking the question about him. Various recruiting sites have reported that as of now, Georgia would be 24/7 Sports. Let me make sure to give their excellent reporters credit. 24/7 Sports reported late last week that Rashawn Gary is likely to take an official visit back to Georgia. That would be his 3rd visit. And also they placed, a source within the Gary camp placed UGA in his top 3 or 4, something like that. So that's very interesting. Guys, it has been a day. We're trying to keep these chats around 10 to 12 minutes, so maybe we can come to you more frequently. Again, this is Jeff Sentell with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I cover college recruiting for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The game, I like your question, 71684. One more I'll give to you. How does Eason compare to Stafford as a prospect? Good stuff here. 3 things to think about. Number 1, Eason's about 4 inches taller than Stafford. He also doesn't play in as talented a league as others might. Maybe the state of Washington, maybe that entire state, maybe there's 5, 7, 10 players good enough to play SEC football, especially as a freshman. A guy like Bailey Hockman is going to see more talented big boy football players that are headed to the SEC every Friday night, playing at McEacher and playing in Metro Atlanta, playing that tough grind of a schedule that they'll play. Archer plays a similar schedule. I think the other thing you got to look in Eason's favor as well is that he's not playing with a lot of cast of characters around him. Again, he's almost 6'6". Lots of his receivers are very diminutive, maybe 5'5", 5'7". Really quick though, and you've got an example there of maybe he's not playing against the best players, but he's not playing with elite talent around him as well. Something to consider. And actually, Eason will be enrolling in January, so he'll have lots of times to learn the scheme or give himself a chance to play as quickly as possible as a freshman. But a lot of that, guys, will also depend on how the quarterback job settles out this fall, whether it's Lambert, whether it's Fatan Bata, and whether it's Bryce Ramsey. How well those guys do might determine the opening next year. Again, Jeff Sentell, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Love the questions. Love interacting with the audience every day. Want to give you as much information as we possibly can. We want you to come back daily and to trust the AJC, read about the AJC, to be a source for recruiting news, not only in Georgia, but also across the Southeast. I'm Jeff Sentell for the AJC. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you again real soon. Enjoyed it.